Good morning, everybody. It is nearly 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to take a look at today's weather update. First of all, we're going to take a look at our 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, and it's continuing to be warm. As I have covered in the past 3 to 4 days, it's been very warm in the east, not only recently, but also in the predictions for the next 2 weeks, and it's continuing with that. So this goes along with the November forecast that basically it's going to be a warm November, and also a lot of precip in the next 8 to 14 days. Let's take a look at our 6 to 10 day outlook. Warm in the east again, so this is from November 8th through November 12th. Cold in the west, but above average precip in the middle section and part of the country. So let's go take a look at the specifics of that. Going to take a look at our NCEP models, and we're going to take a look at the GFS model, the American model, and we're going to take a look at the American weather, well, more so the continent of North America, because we have Canada and Mexico also included in this image. So again, we see a storm system in the next 48 hours. This is current basically, and you see Chicago getting in on some rain, pretty hefty at times, and then we have a second batch come through behind that, some more rain for places like Wisconsin, Illinois, and Chicago, and that brings a lot of warmth ahead of it. So places like Pennsylvania and Ohio in the mid-Atlantic are going to be pretty warm in the next 3 to 4 days. Look at this tropical system sneaking its way through right around Florida, and it does seem to maintain its strength. So again, this is something we're going to have to keep our eyes on, as we have a lot of warm waters in the Gulf of Mexico. And again, so that's a storm we're going to have to keep our eyes on. There is a lot of cold air in Canada, and we're looking now at November 8th. So this is in about 7 days from now. And we need, in order for that to come down, a negative NAO to start to develop. And preferably a big storm system to come in from the west. And usually that would come in through Canada, kind of like a Clipper system, and bring cold air to the USA. That's your layman terms of how cold air kind of, you get your first freeze across the country. Let's take a look at our NAO. I'm going to take a look at our Climate Prediction Center. And okay, finally, we have it going negative. The past 2 days I was kind of worried in a sense, because the NAO was forecasted to remain above neutral, in other words, positive. And now it's finally forecasted to go negative. Let's keep our fingers crossed that this will continue to go negative and dip even further negative in the forecasts until December 1st to the 15th, because that will be a big determiner of what our winter weather will look like. Let's take a look at our CFS monthly outlook, and I'm going to take a look at our November forecast for our temperature anomalies. And here is our latest from today, November 3rd. And again, it has a very, very, very warm USA and eastern Canada, and most of Canada actually, and most of the USA. But as you can see here, we do have some hope here, more than hope, because we have some cold here in Alaska. And what that tells me is that this La Nina might be overpowering the tremendous warmth that the Pacific Ocean has in it, and all that Pacific air that's going to try to make its way eastward into the USA. So that is telling me that we have a stronger La Nina than maybe forecasted to and expected to develop. So that's been the big question the past 2 days. Will the warmth in the Pacific overpower the La Nina and therefore bring a lot of warm to most of North America this winter, or will the La Nina have its effect on the USA? Right here, it's looking like the La Nina may try to overpower the warm Pacific, because this, again, with the La Nina, you tend to get cold in the north, warm to the south, but the point is we're seeing a lot of cold here consistently, in these 3 days of runs here in Alaska, trying to make its way into Western Canada too. So that is good news. Let's take a look at our National Hurricane Center outlook, because again we have this storm system here right south of the Caribbean, which has now a 80% chance of developing cyclone formation in the next 48 hours. And yesterday, I believe it was at a 70% chance. So basically, to summarize this whole thing, our formation chance of this storm through the next 48 hours is very high, 80%. And formation chance through the next 7 days is also very high, 90%. In other words, it's very likely it's going to develop into at least a tropical depression at the very least, but it's probably going to make tropical storm status. As you saw on the GFS model, that storm makes its way up to the Gulf and becomes a 980 millibar low, which is pretty strong storm system. So let's take a look at our satellite view. And again, we have a healthy area of convection with this area east of the Yucatan of Mexico, where we have that red X. A pretty healthy convection there. Now we just need to get some organization, some circulation with it, and those thunderstorms circulating around an eye, if that will happen. What I mean by that is, yes, it's probably going to form a tropical storm, but not all tropical storms have distinct eyes. But if you get a hurricane, then you get that eye with it. So let's see what happens with this. This is something I definitely want to keep my eyes on, and we'll keep you guys updated in the next 2 weeks with, or whatever, however long the storm system stays in the picture. Subtropical storm Patty, which means it was a tropical storm at one time. Now it's not. It's weakened, is going off to the east. And this thing isn't too much of a concern. This yellow X, basically a very low chance of developing. We'll keep our eyes on it nevertheless in my updates to come. EPAC, our Eastern Pacific. This post-tropical cyclone lane, again another post-tropical cyclone, which has weakened significantly. And this is a very healthy area of convection here with this orange X. It has a 50% chance of developing both in the next 48 hours and in the next 7 days. So it's kind of up there. Might or might not develop. But again, we have some healthy convection here. So if we can get no shear, we have plenty of warm waters when you're this far south in latitude. So this has a decent shot at developing. We'll see what happens with it. The last thing I want to look at is a little review of the Jamstack weather model. And we're going to take a look at, again, our winter forecast. So I just want to take a look at our sea surface temperature anomalies for now and kind of hone in on this, because again, we have that La Nina forming for winter time, and we have a lot of warm water here north of that in the northern Pacific, also in the Atlantic. But I'm more concerned about this northern Pacific water. Now, as you have seen in the November forecast for December, we saw some cold air trying to work its way into Alaska and in Western Canada. So I believe that it's due to the La Nina, and that it's bringing some cold air, troughing into the northern parts of Alaska. Now, just to prove my point, one of the most infamous La Nina years where we saw a cold winter in Alaska was it was the winter of 2011 and 12, and it was a La Nina, and it was also I believe a double La Nina, or second, a second year La Nina, where you get a La Nina 2 years in a row. And it was a warm winter for the USA. But besides the point, in Alaska, we saw a lot of cold air trying to funnel in. So this is why I think this is in connection with the La Nina. Because again, the year of 2011 and 12 was a very strong La Nina year, and we saw a big winter in Alaska. So that's why I think this Alaskan cold is correlated with the La Nina. And therefore, the La Nina is starting to overpower, believe it or not, this Pacific warmth in the warmth waters of the Pacific Ocean. Now, it's kind of interesting how all this stuff works, because you would think, well, since we have a lot of expansiveness in this warm body of water in the Pacific,